Welcome to another episode of What the Hype. This week, everyone, we're foraging for mushrooms, bugs, rare items that we can donate to the museum. We might pop by the local mines and slay some monsters and collect some gold. But after that, we're going to cozy on up back at our house. We're going to maybe decorate it a little bit, possibly with an in-ground pool, hold the ladder, and going to bed with the prospect of doing it all again tomorrow. Makes us very warm inside. Digitally, of course, it's our episode dedicated to cozy video games.
Cozy.
Love it.
Cozy.
So cozy. Let's introduce our panel for this episode. At the beginning of this century, he became a household name. Video games in his franchise have sold an impressive 200 million copies worldwide. It is my great pleasure to introduce Andrew the Sims. Yes, that Sims.
Oh, wow.
Sims.
I thought this might be like a Tom Nook reference at first, but I like that. People actually have asked me jokingly if I invented the Sims video game because my last name is Sims. And
it seems
I tell
too
them
big
yes.
a coincidence.
Yeah, I wish I invented it. I wouldn't be here right now if I did.
Oh,
I'd be a billionaire on a yacht.
Well, we're going to be talking about The Sims, so maybe that's like as good.
True.
So our next guest is a man who enjoys being cozy, so much so that an entire style of upholstery and furniture is named after him in some circles, parenthesis. It's Micah Tannenbaum.
So happy to be here, Eric. There's, we've played a lot of video games together, actually, in Chicago, and I'm looking forward to talking a little bit about that that's a great T-shirt, by the way.
Yeah, nice T-shirt. Thanks for the Christmas gift.
No problem. Very appropriate.
But, are you ready to get cozy, Micah?
I'm cozy. I'm ready to go. It's windy outside. It's warm in here. If I could just turn on the PS5 while we're recording, that would be even better.
Well, you have to work on placement, I guess. And finally, I would like to introduce my companion in all things, including Stardew Valley, who's put a whopping 672 hours into that game alone. Yeah, we counted. It's wild. Please give a returning What the Hype welcome to my wife, Meg Scott.
Oh.
Wife.
I'm
Breaking
a wife.
What the Hype news. What the
Fresh
wife
off
news.
the press. Wife. No, it's true. I mention it because in some of these games we're going to be discussing, you can get married to characters.
That's
and
true.
Other
It's
characters.
very true. Marriage plays a key role in some of these games.
But Meg, how do you feel about Eric putting you on blast in terms of your Stardew Valley playtime?
You know what? I'm actually not ashamed of it.
Okay, good.
I'm really proud of it.
Good.
Well, worth noting that about 200 of those hours were on my save game because Meg got the game for her birthday in 2023, did we say?
Yes.
Okay.
February of 2023.
Her dearest friend from childhood thought this would be a game that you would really like. And she did like it and she did play it. And eventually I was like, okay, I should take some interest and see what's going on. So I then played the game, and then Meg, who had sort of the run of things, was watching the entire time.
Exactly. I was there to offer input, give advice.
Yeah.
Try to stop you from bombing your farm so much.
I figure if you put the bomb and then you, by accident, by the way, and then you enter the house, it shouldn't explode your farm because you've gone into the house. It changed the screens, but that didn't work.
No, it remembers.
Anyway.
It remembers where you dropped that bomb.
Did the producers of Stardew Valley send you that shirt for your commitment of 672 hours of gameplay?
672 hours.
They did not, but only because I'm sure that there are people who have even more hours in the game than I do.
Oh, it's true. Yeah. You're on year, 14 in the
I'm on
game?
year 14 in the game.
Year 14. There's 4 seasons. We'll talk about it a little later. But your shirt does have more animals than the top row.
It's true.
These are all the animals, or many of the animals that you can get. And turns out Hot Topic is having a real big Stardew kick at present. That shirt and 2 or 3 other designs are on the mannequins when you first walk in.
I know what the people want.
Yeah, I know it's a hot game right now.
So it's really exciting to talk, I think, about video games in the most general sense, but also specifically what we mean when we mean cozy video games. And we all love a good cozy game. I know that each of us has played some of the games that we're going to be talking about. So, Andrew, could you inform us as to the lingo?
Yeah, so we wanted to share different types of games that we consider cozy type video games. So there's an open world game, and this would be a game that offers a virtual world with objectives that can be performed in any order rather than a set order, sort of like what you see with the latest Zelda games, the open world ones. Then there's sandbox games, and this is a game that would give players a high degree of creativity to affect things in the world of the game, usually with very limited or non-existent goals. The goal is basically just to create and let your creative flag fly. And then there's simulator games. So think of The Sims or Sim City. These games attempt to copy various activities from real life in the form of a game for various purposes, such as training or analysis, prediction, entertainment. Other examples would include Roller Coaster Tycoon. There was one called Tropico I used to be into. There's like 6 versions of that right now. It's set on an island. It was pretty fun. You play a dictator. So I don't know how that's aged, but
so like an Animal Crossing, right?
Yes. And then there's escapism type games. So there's a tendency with these to seek distraction and relief from unpleasant realities, especially by seeking entertainment or engaging in fantasy. I mean, there can be crossover here. These aren't exactly separate silos all the time. And then, of course, with these examples, some of them might feel like a cozy game. It's a game you just want to curl up on the couch and play for hours and hours, like at least a couple of us have when it comes to Stardew Valley and or Animal Crossing. Yeah. So for the panel here, how do you think cozy video games have impacted you, and what do you get out of them?
I don't know about you guys, but I could use more relaxing things in my life now more than ever. That has been increasingly true over the years. So I'm grateful to have found cozy games, such as Stardew Valley, such as Breath of the Wild, which I first started playing very late, like a year before Tears of the Kingdom came out, so 6 years after it was made. But these games with this world that you can just kind of sit in by a campfire, maybe forage if you're feeling lucky, these games really allow me to decompress from the outside world. And that's what I value most about them.
I agree with that. And I would say for me that I really refound video games during the pandemic. I think a lot of people did, and that's really when I did my deep dive into Animal Crossing as recommended by Andrew. I went to his island, he went to my island. We had a great time. But it's that escapism. It's the ability to just let your mind drift for a period of time. Sometimes you're challenged. Sometimes that's part of the fun. But I also like some of these open world games where you're just allowed to do what you want to do and not really have too many consequences for doing them.
How about you, Meg?
For me, the importance of cozy games is that it's actually a video game that I can play, because I grew up with my friends having Xboxes and Nintendos and things like that, and I never had any of those. So when I would play a video game at a friend's house, I was always the worst one. I was not good at swinging swords and doing sports things on games. So then when I first discovered The Sims, when I was 10 years old, I was like, oh, I can do this. I can build a house. I can choose what to eat for lunch. And it wasn't some great challenge, really. I mean, yeah, there are challenges, like making sure that your sim puts the plate in the sink and not just on the floor. But overall, it was just this is an easy game to play and to not get too stressed out about, too worked up about.
Yeah, accessibility might be the right word to use here. It can reach a broad audience. For me too, similarly, it's not too burdensome to play. You don't have to think about it too hard. And when I think of cozy video games, I think about waking up on a Saturday or Sunday morning and just sitting in front of the couch and playing Animal Crossing, checking in on Nook's Cranny, loading up Breath of the Wild and exploring a region I haven't encountered yet. I just loved, with Breath of the Wild and Animal Crossing in particular, loading those up on a weekend morning and chilling the hell out with a cup of coffee. It's kind of just, it was a slow way to start the morning too.
Ooh.
Very relaxing. So that's a game I would really love to have right now. And maybe that's going to have to be Stardew Valley or some of these other games that we talk about later today, because I miss that.
Do you think that comes from your childhood though? Because
Maybe.
Most of us grew up in late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s, playing on these consoles. And for me, I'm thinking back to when you just described your experience with Animal Crossing or Breath of the Wild, A Link to the Past on SNES. That was the go-to game for me for such a long time. And I have really fond memories of that, when it would be pouring rain outside. There was nothing better than popping a Zelda game into the system and just exploring for hours on end, trying to figure out all of the different trials and tasks, and how to rent the game from Blockbuster back in the day.
Yeah.
Aging myself a little bit here, but yeah, there's something very nostalgic about it.
Yeah, I think that's probably a factor. I guess it's that, and I'm not waking up and immediately starting to work. I'm waking up and just chilling on the couch with a really cool, beautiful game. So,
and it can also make you feel productive. Like some of the tasks in these games, like running an entire farm. Like, even if I'm not doing that in real life, I'm like, I feel productive. Look at me. I'm sure I would be, crap on a farm in real life, but like digitally, I run a damn good farm.
I think video games generally do help you feel accomplished. You're completing something. You're achieving a goal. And yeah, sure, it's in a game. It's not making an impact on your real life, but you do get a sense of accomplishment out of games.
It can trick your brain that way, though. Like if it's Saturday and I got up real early and opened, Breath of the Wild, and by 1 or 2 p.m., it's time to like start cleaning the apartment in the real world. And I'm like, but I already did so much. I already completed 20 shrines. Like that's my Saturday done.
Yeah. So we'll share some specific games, and we'll also look at the history of games in a second. But first, we're going to take a quick break to check in on our farms, and we'll be right back.
Oh, an alien landed on my farm overnight during that break. It's totally wild. We're back, and I wanted to get into sort of a historic overview, a history of the types of games that could fall into this category of cozy. Micah, especially when you mentioned or like older Zelda and classic Zelda. Definitely Zelda has always been known for being open world, but here's something I've found. The open world elements in video gaming dates as far back as to the late 1970s. There was a game called Colossal Cave Adventure in 1976, which was all text-based, but it had a non-linear story. It was later made into another game called Adventure for the Atari. And there were essentially, because of the open world and nonlinear elements, people could immerse themselves in these games. In 1981, there was a computer role-playing game called Ultima, which had like an overworld map. It was one of the first games to have like that as a concept. And it was inspired, of course, by Dungeons and Dragons. There were also many other adventure games. In 1986, we have The Legend of Zelda, which has these various dungeon sort of challenge areas with an overworld map, even though you're like a little pixel guy and the map is like 18 pixels wide. But The Legend of Zelda rewarded players for exploration of the large map. So you literally had to travel to all the corners in order to find what you needed to essentially complete the game, which is exactly how games, especially the Zelda games, are still done. So simulation games like SimCity or Roller Coaster Tycoon were becoming very, very popular in the late 1990s. There were also open world games with technology improving. You had games like Grand Theft Auto, starting with Grand Theft Auto 3, that had a fully functional world, a fictional city, but it was an entire city. It felt lived in. You could explore them freely. There were people on the streets that were like just regular citizens. They'd react to what you were doing. All of this, all of the games in this genre were fine and pleasant. You could pass the time, even if you weren't going on cop chases all the time. I spent so many hours just walking around the Grand Theft Auto games, and it gives you some dopamine. It definitely helped me to avoid doing my homework, but it also chilled me out during stressful teenage years and offered escapism. And, really the other thing to know about these types of games is they're not just for children. I don't think they ever were just for children, but as we've gotten older, I will say there seems to be now a focus on like what cozy games for adults to have, partly because of what I said. Like, I think we could all really use a chill right now, with today's times being how they are. I think adults are appreciating the opportunity to slow down, live in a world. Games like Minecraft have always been played by both children and adults. Stardew Valley, Animal Crossing are also those examples where the gameplay elements really are for everybody.
Yeah, I think slowing down is a good call out. That's the reason a lot of adults enjoy them. And even growing up playing The Sims, I don't know why I said it like that, just to differentiate it from SimCity. I didn't really have many friends in middle school and elementary school, and The Sims, like, this is going to sound weird to say, and I really don't think this is why I played the game, but it kind of helped me have a social life in a weird way. I was interacting with other humans through that game.
You see, I get that. I do.
I also played The Sims Online, which was The Sims 1, but in an online world, and I was addicted to that game. Yeah, so... yeah, there's a lot of, they can benefit people of all ages. And I think, in this day and age, more adults are happy to play video games, whereas it used to not be as socially acceptable, I think, to play video games as an adult. You would hear, those are for kids. Video games are for kids.
Part of that, I think, is because we're now the adults.
We made it cool.
And the games
okay
playing video games.
And the games have gotten more intricate. Definitely great, but the games have gotten more designed for adults too, and they've become more challenging.
I'm thinking of that one meme that's like, video games are great because they allow you to live out crazy fantasies. For example, in The Sims, you can have a house and a job.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. A house and a job?
Yeah.
Really? In
Both.
This economy?
I know.
Oh, man.
A job that you can live, you can have a happy life just on.
I know we mentioned some of the games that have impacted us, but I wanted to ask the panel also, which other ones have impacted you the most? And also, how are they unique, or what did you use them for that was like your big thing?
Well, Andrew mentioned The Sims. For me, I think it was The Sims and The Sims 2 and The Sims 3 that have impacted me the most. I just always felt, like a very creative kid. And so being able to design a house and decorate it and design the people that were going to live in that house was always very exciting. My best friend and I would like build neighborhoods together. I remember we had this one neighborhood that was entirely just Harry Potter characters. And like we had like, this is the house where the trio live. This is the house where the professors live.
Oh, that's fun.
I remember we did not know Flitwick's first name at the time. So we were like, what's a random man's name? And we chose Miguel Flitwick. We weren't even trying to be funny. We were very serious. Like that. Yeah, that's a man's name. Miguel Flitwick. And yeah, just the hours that I would sink into those games with my friend. And yeah, the creativity that comes with it. It's really like limitless in what you could do, how far you could go in that game.
Yeah, I'm glad that you said limitless because, like you were saying, you can build the house, you can change color patterns. you can do all the design elements, and then you could switch over to the live mode, and that's where you're controlling these people's lives. Like, I kind of enjoyed going back and forth, like spending an hour designing, an hour in live mode. It felt refreshing and kind of addicting to just bounce back and forth and making different homes and seeing how far you could stretch your creativity.
Yeah, and then everyone plays it in a different way. There are the people that play just to like torture their Sims, put them in a pool, delete the ladder.
Right.
And then there are people like me where I was like, I'm going to make an entire dynasty of Sims and we're going to rule
and Miguel Flitwick.
Pleasant View. Miguel Flitwick.
Well, Meg, I'm glad you mentioned the Harry Potter connection too, because it's also sandbox games like The Sims are really a great way to interact with your media in a different way. So like trying to do a Harry Potter town or neighborhood in The Sims is another way of engaging with Harry Potter. It's a way of playing The Sims, but it's a way of exploring and cultivating like your, basically, let's say in a healthy way, obsession in a new format. And so ultimately, like I remember doing that. The game I played probably as close to 700 hours like you and Stardew is Roller Coaster Tycoon as a kid. And I would eventually make those themed parks that had maybe different character names or the it was like the street stands were all named after like the Hogwarts professors, whatever you would do in the park. But like another way of taking the other things that you're passionate about and kind of just it stretches the brain in an interesting way.
In recent years, you made that Westworld amusement
park, made a Westworld.
You?
So the other cool thing about some of these classic simulators and sandbox games is they're getting like revamped or I was playing Open RCT, which is like the very, very best developer version of Roller Coaster Tycoon, where you have a lot of customization. And I made a Westworld world and one based on Monk, the TV show, which we were watching the other year. So you can really, it's just fun, I think. It's a new way of being creative. And it is creative, even if you're not creating something tangible that you hold in your hand. That act of creating is something that I think will benefit you and make you a more, I want to say effusive person, or like make you create more in the real world.
Yeah, I think you mentioned OpenRCT, this like open source Roller Coaster Tycoon project. They keep releasing updates for it. The people who run it, are continuously releasing updates. And I think it speaks to just how passionate people are about that game and others after so much time. I was a huge Roller Coaster Tycoon fan too. And I was thrilled a couple years ago when I guess it was Atari released Roller Coaster Tycoon Classic, as they called it, for iOS and Android. And it actually just came to Nintendo Switch as well. And I think it's RCT 1 and 2, the best of both. I love having this on my phone. I have it on my iPad too. I love playing it on planes. Just a great way to kill a little bit of time. And it works great in the touch interface. It looks exactly like the one we were playing in the 90s or early 2000s. That game, the graphics still hold up to me. Like, I just love the color, the design. It's wonderful.
They knew their like limitations and they played to them, there are some times when I want an angle that you just can't get in that game. But like for the most part, the seeing options and everything that they've created do let you do what you want to do.
And there's alternatives now that get updated. I mean, there's Planet Coaster, there's Parkitect, which gets compared to Roller Coaster Tycoon quite a bit. I think it was inspired by Roller Coaster Tycoon. To mention a couple games, well, I have one more game that we haven't mentioned yet, which is Mini Motorways, and I kind of accidentally discovered this a couple years ago. And basically, the whole game is you're just drawing highways between buildings and trying to manage the flow of traffic. And on paper, it might sound a little boring, but the sound effects, the way the city grows, the pace of the game, it's very relaxing. And I was really into this game about a year ago. You have to get it through Apple Arcade right now, which is a subscription, or you can get it through like Steam, and it's not a subscription through there. I wish you could do a one-off purchase on the phone because I would. But that's a very relaxing, like, it's not Sim City. It's like it's almost a simpler Sim City. The goal is to see how big you can make your city before the people driving from building to building can't make it in time anymore.
Oh no.
Trust me, it's
stakes
good.
Are real.
It is. Yeah, they are.
Yeah, I mean, SimCity was another one. I think SimCity 2000 was the one I played the most. Came on a CD-ROM, and I'm sorry for all the young kids who don't know what that is. But you could destroy your city with aliens attacking.
Yeah, the
that
UFO
was kind of very cool. But
you could cause riots, and then the little people would go around with their picket signs.
Yeah, but for the most part, it was about brokering deals for utilities. Like, not something I would think that 12-year-old me would understand or know a lot about, but because it was a faithful, those games are called CMS's construction management sims. It's Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 with the logistics of park management, financing, ad campaigns, all these other angles apart from just the construction and planning. The strategy of it all really stretches the brain, and I think allows us to, it's essentially the next evolution of just educational games, period. I think they are educational. You learn a lot, even if a lot of that like truth or knowledge comes from within.
Micah, how about you? What games have you been into?
I know I mentioned earlier A Link to the Past. That's definitely one that sticks with me for the reasons already discussed. And it's really an entry point for me into the Zelda franchise. I didn't really play Zelda on the original NES system. I got into it more with Super Nintendo. And then, of course, I think probably one of the most iconic games of all time is the Ocarina of Time. I think most true video game players or people who grew up playing video games were obsessed with this game. I know Majora's Mask was the sequel to it on Nintendo 64. But just to see the progression from A Link to the Past to Ocarina of Time and seeing how the graphics evolved and then being able to go and spend time in this world of Hyrule, it was something that just, I really enjoyed doing. And maybe it was the adventure of it. Maybe it was having to conquer the temples, like you were talking about earlier, Eric, with the shrines. And some of the things that you had to do, though, you really had to put your brain to work. And remember, this was at a time where the internet was in its infancy. So there wasn't a whole lot of information out there on how to go about beating the game. I mean, Nintendo, I think, had a hotline, or you could get the Nintendo Gamer magazine, but
right.
It's not really like you could just pop onto YouTube like you can today and get a walkthrough for the game. You had to figure it out yourself. And I actually miss that because now I'm just such a softie. Like, I'll go on YouTube and watch, somebody's channel and see how they.
That's me too. I'll give up quick and just go to YouTube. But
honestly,
back in
game playthroughs are very helpful for those purposes. But I do kind of miss Prima's official strategy guides being produced for every single, I wanted that nostalgic factor when playing Breath of the Wild again, but I ended up on IGN.com. As a kid, it was Cheat Code Central, cheatcc.com.
And also GameFAQs.com. That's what I relied on, but they didn't offer video. You had to, maybe some pictures, but it was really text-based.
It was mostly picture. Yeah, if there was any if there was anything, it was like definitely
visual guidance. It was
visual guides. Yeah. But and I honestly have fond memories of playing it with friends, and that was another thing that came to mind when we were kind of planning this episode. Is you can talk about cozy video games, but I was also just thinking about cozy settings in general, and so many good memories growing up was getting together with friends and on a Friday night or a Saturday afternoon, playing GoldenEye. GoldenEye would not be considered a cozy video game by any stretch.
Definitely not.
But Mario Kart, not really a cozy video game. But being in that just kind of setting and having that nostalgia associated with it. Mario Party, Eric, we've played many times. Meg too.
Recently. Yeah.
Recently. And
my first time playing Mario Party.
Oh, wow.
You did pretty well from what I remember.
Yeah, you're getting cozy with your friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I still remember sitting next to my bed with a TV in the corner, a foot off the ground, playing video games on Nintendo 64 with friends, in a little cramped area. It was cozy.
Yeah.
For me, it was going into the computer room and pulling up an extra chair to the great big family desktop and first making some stovetop mac and cheese and then booting up The Sims.
Banjo-Kazooie would be another cozy video game, and the sequel too. I mean, they're basically more or less the same.
Like Banjo-Tooie, is that called?
Yep.
Banjo-Tooie, yeah, which was a continuation. Yeah, it's just those games where you have to use your brain a little bit, there's adventure to it. You have to explore, you have to solve puzzles. So it's somewhat similar in concept to Zelda. But my thing is, I don't feel like there's been games like this that have evolved with the systems, maybe with the exception of Hogwarts Legacy most recently. I don't know if you guys feel any different.
Well, I mean, that new Animal Crossing came out for Switch just in 2020. So
That's
there's
true.
that.
Do you mean like in the way that they're not making new games anymore? Or what do you mean?
Maybe the imagination, the story.
There are games out there that are trying even new things. I read while researching for this episode that, was it No Man's Sky or something, where you go and create planets? Something like 1 trillion simulated planets have been created in that solar system, like the game's cloud system. Like 1 trillion planets, like it's more than you could ever visit, ever. But that's a game where, just like Minecraft, you're building worlds, essentially. It's the scope has evolved so much that it's not going to be contained in the way that it used to be back when you were limited to a small television in your neighborhood with just a few people that maybe could, like, I don't even know if this worked that way, but being on Sega Channel at the same time, like it just very much has grown up and is as limitless and as wide as the world is now. So I do feel that. I wanted to ask you, Meg, because I know that Stardew is really your touchstone for this, but when you were playing Sims growing up, was that also with your friend Alyssa?
Yes, that was with my best childhood friend, Alyssa. Always played Sims with her. And then for my 30th birthday, she gave me Stardew Valley.
Wow.
She's been like my cozy game
buddy,
conspirator. Exactly.
Enabler.
Enabler, yeah.
So she was right that you like Stardew Valley. I want to talk about Stardew Valley. What about it hooked you and inspired you to sink 476 hours into it and then 200 more with me?
Well, so first of all, there was kind of an embarrassing time in my life circa 2009 where I got really into Farmville on Facebook.
Oh.
And I sunk a lot of time into that. And, it would be like, I'd be having dinner with family and I'd be like, I'm sorry, I have to go harvest my raspberries. And I would leave the table. And, looking back on that, I'm like, that was too much. That was too much. And then there was, and that was actually, I also played that with Alyssa. We both played Farmville together. And one day we made a pact. We were like, we have to quit Farmville. We can't do it anymore. We shook hands and both hit delete app at the same time. So then when she gave me Stardew Valley, I was like, oh, this is kind of like Farmville, but not embarrassing. And it felt like a little smarter, a little more creative. I had heard of people playing it a little more socially acceptable. And it was all things that I loved about Farmville, of, choosing what crops to plant and harvesting them and adopting farm animals. And then Stardew came with all these extra things like meeting all the townsfolk and picking out someone to marry. And I'm 14 years in and I still haven't married anyone in that game because
you're 14.
You dislike all your
exactly.
options.
I'm only 14. Well, if I had to choose someone, it would probably be Krobus, who you can't actually marry, but you can invite to be a roommate.
Is he the sewer monster?
Yeah, he's the sewer monster.
I need to give this game another shot. I tried it a while ago and I just stopped, and I think I just need to start again. I barely got into it at all when I started, so I don't have much to restart, but
it's definitely difficult at the start because the game starts and you've just got rubble all over your farm. And you get tired so quickly.
Yeah, I was like, "What the hell?"
It's rough. You really
start
got
fresh and clean and beautiful.
Yeah, you got to. You really got to put in the work to earn it.
I do want to know more about Animal Crossing because that's something I don't have any experience about. But I will say with Stardew, there is so much that you can do, and the more time you put into it, the more you learn about the world and you develop a rhythm. But it is a game where it's really just sandbox. Like, it's really large and you can do a lot, but you have to kind of self-discover it. You know, to be surprised by a notification in the middle of fall that there's a harvest festival and you should get good crops together to be a part of that, is kind of like a surprise. It's like, oh, have I been planning for that? And if you don't, you got to kind of wait till next year. But yeah, I can completely understand how the lack of like direction, maybe the open-endedness could work to maybe be a barrier for people.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot at once.
So how does Animal Crossing work? Is that like you have daily chores, tasks?
No,
It's definitely
you're just
social.
kind of collecting new items. It's not really social, honestly. I mean, Micah mentioned
you're
visiting
each
my
other's
islands.
But
that's not the main thrust of the game. You're kind of just building and expanding your home and your town. You're not really farming, though there is a bit of that. You're just making as much money as possible to expand your island. I guess that's kind of, to put it very simply, that's it. But the social aspects are the non-playable characters on your island. They're all cute and you want to talk to them and check out their homes. And there's like special events that happen like during holidays, like let's say New Year's, there's an actual New Year's Eve countdown. The game also happens in real time, which is really fun and interesting. So if I log in right now, it would be sunset or dusk. And yeah, like I said, holidays, they'll celebrate birthdays in the game. It just feels like you're living on an island and you're doing what you can to make your earn some bells, which are the money, which is the currency.
Oh, yeah. I don't know that Stardew has a name for it. I've just been calling it monies.
Monies.
The
It's
monies.
just monies. It says like G, I think.
Yeah, gold. It's lowercase g, so it's like gold coin.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For me, I know at times I would get caught up in trying to complete the, you have to catch certain fish or certain insects, and some of them are only available at certain times of the year. So you do have to, like, literally you have to wait. You know, you're talking about the seasons going by fast in Stardew Valley. As Andrew was saying, right now it's wintertime, but there are some fish that are only available in summer. You literally have to wait until summer to catch those fish.
Oh,
now,
wait.
you
like
could
real
get
summer. Like,
yeah, I mean, you could get creative and mess with the timing on your Wii if you really wanted to.
Your Switch? Yeah.
Your Switch. Sorry. My head's in the clouds right now. But I know that, like, in watching videos, that's what some people actually did.
Yeah.
In order for them to then be able to complete, you know, their whatever it's called. I was going to say bestiary, but that's not the correct term for it.
Pokedex. Complete the Pokedex.
It's basically like a Pokedex, but I also loved when I was in need of bells, catching lots of tarantulas and scorpions, because they are the prized insects of whatever your island is. I think my island's called Dobby's Island.
Yeah, you can name it yourself.
Dobby.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have to play this game next. I didn't know. I know.
If you saw, like, when you said scorpions.
If you haven't played Animal Crossing before, you're gonna become addicted. I mean, if you like Stardew Valley, I think you're gonna love it.
Oh man, do I want to sink 600 hours into
I got some good
another
fruit from Andrew's Island.
Oh, what's so good about the fruit on Andrew's Island?
Well,
they're just apples.
Oh.
Each island has different fruit on them, and you can't pick what you get when you start your island. It's chosen at random. So then you have to go to other islands to get the other ones. But then you can bring the fruit in and then plant those trees, in your island.
And usually that is more valuable than what is grown on your island, I believe.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
There are some similarities then to other aspects of Stardew. Stardew also, very interestingly, is still getting updated. They actually just released more quest lines and storylines. The developer is very good to the people that play that game.
Yeah, you buy the game once, and then anytime there's an update, it just updates automatically.
That's refreshing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the storylines are like pretty adult. One of the townspeople suffers from alcohol addiction.
Yeah, I was going to say, and another
like
thing
Tom
that...
Nook.
See the raccoon?
Mm-hmm.
Little raccoon guy? I was gonna another thing I love about Stardew is the story, and you learn the backstory of the townspeople as you go through the game. Like you you meet this kid Alex who lives with his grandparents, and as you get to know him, you learn like his father left when he was very young, and then his mother died, and his father always told him he was worthless, and so now he kind of feels like he has something to prove. And like you learn these dark stories. There's this one character who the entire first year he's not even in the game because he's off being a soldier somewhere, and then he comes back and you meet him and he'll say dialogue like, being in an open field like this makes me nervous. And you're like, wow, we got PTSD going on in this game. We got depression, alcoholism.
Oh,
Goodness.
and it's fairly, the game is also fairly anti-capitalist. There's the big mean Jojo Mart that's trying to come in and take over the town, and you can do quests. You can actually choose whether you help them to take over the town successfully and put small produce people out of business. Of course, the game works better if you don't do that.
Yeah. But I mean, there are some characters like that too in Animal Crossing. I know you have Gulliver, who shows up on the beach all the time. He says he's been kicked off his ship. He's been mutinied. And you always have to, go in search of his cell phone that's fractured into a million pieces. And you have
because he crash landed.
There's Red, who's a fox who has a ship full of pirated artwork, and some of it's not pirated, but you have to do your best to discern if you're actually purchasing a real piece of art or a fake. Oh. And that art then goes into the art gallery in the museum. There's a museum, Meg, that you can fill with, much like Stardew Valley, actually. So in
Animal Crossing, all the characters are animals, correct?
Yes, except for you.
But then you can also collect animals,
like just the bugs,
just the bugs,
the fish.
Yeah,
it's not like you can be friends with a tarantula and also collect a tarantula.
No, you can put it in a little would it be like terrarium and keep it in your house if you want.
I'm not sure I would describe that as becoming friends with the bug.
I would.
I've literally seen videos of those tarantulas inside their containers, and it's like hundreds or thousands of them just stacked up on the island. It's insane.
Wow.
Whoa. We should probably move on.
Yeah, I'm getting too excited about bugs in Animal Crossing.
All right, we are going to take a quick break, and then we'll wrap up today's episode. We'll be right back.
So to wrap up, another thing that I think really helps with the cozy mood is the music. Going back to The Sims with like the jazz, and Stardew has a very like lofty kind of orchestral thing. I think all the great video games these days have a wonderful score, but the added benefit of these open world games is they have music that you really can just build to, create to. There's something about it.
Definitely. That's such a great point. I mean, you could go see The Legend of Zelda in orchestra. That's how prolific some of the music is from video games. It's not, I mean, they do it for other video games as well, not just for Zelda, but that's another one I think most people know the theme song to.
And you can get these soundtracks on vinyl.
Yeah, and the Zelda music is like, especially in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, very simple. Like sometimes there will be no music at all, but then you'll hear a little piano chord. It's very beautiful and yes, relaxing. Same thing with Animal Crossing. I mentioned mini motorways. There's not music, but again, I mentioned this earlier, the sound effects are very satisfying in that game.
Yeah, a lot of great sound design goes into these games, and you imagine people thinking like, okay, what is going to make the exact sound that I need for this pumpkin being smashed into a wall or something like that. And yeah, with more of like a in it too.
Oh, you know?
Yeah. But yeah, a lot of skill goes into all sorts of corners of making these games.
And just because of the sheer runtime that we've sunk into Stardew Valley, I have a little game for Andrew and Micah to play, which is when you are getting a farm animal in Stardew, the game suggests names for your animal. You have full customization. You can choose a name, but sometimes the game suggests. So between Meg's farm, Fecund Farm, our farm, or my farm, Speely, and our two combined farms, we've got animals that the game has recommended. We've used the game recommended names, and I want you guys to guess what the animal is, because whoever came up with this name generator, it's not obvious. It's kind of weird, actually. So welcome to our little game of Stardew Valley Guess the Animal based on their game provided names. And we're just going to go through, I think it's like 8 animals total. We'll see what Micah and Andrew think. Here are your available options. Okay, so there's cats, dogs, sheep, goats, pigs, different types of chickens, rabbit, duck. There's a dinosaur that you can get on your farm. There's your horse and an ostrich.
Okay.
So these are all the possible animals that might show up on this slide. And let's hit the next. Trowbert.
All right, I'm going to go back to the previous slide. I'm going to say Trowbert is the cow.
I'm going to go with the horse.
Okay. Should I advance to the one after?
Advance, yeah.
Oh, rabbit.
Trowbert is a rabbit. I think he's my rabbit. Meg.
Yeah, he's on your farm.
I could see that.
A lot of these animals, you adopt them and you're thinking to yourself, oh, I've always wanted to have a rabbit named this. And you're about ready to type it in. But then the game is like, how's Trowbert? And you're like, well, now I can't think of anything more perfect than Trowbert. And you have to choose it.
Okay. How about Snoot?
Pig?
I'll go with the dinosaur this time.
Ooh.
A white cow.
White cow.
Damn
Pig was
it.
a good.
That was my first guess.
I know. Pig was a good thought. Because, Snoot.
Yeah.
Snout.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Next. Getch.
Was there a spider?
Oh, there was not a spider.
Hold on. I need to look back at all the animals again.
Yeah.
Getch. I'm going to say the goat. Getch the goat.
Getch the goat.
Going to go with one of the chickens. Do I have to say which chicken?
You don't have to say which of the chickens.
All right. A pig. Oh, see, that almost looks like a cow to me.
That is a cow.
You know what? I put the wrong animal here. I'm sorry.
Oh.
It is in fact a pig, even though that is a picture
That's a
of a
cow.
brown cow.
Oh, if I squint real hard, it looks like a pig. So it's fine.
It kind of does.
Getch is my pink pig.
Oh, okay.
Oh man. Scalers.
Dinosaur?
Oh, because scales. I'm going to say the ostrich.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Oh, whoa.
Hey,
My God.
it's
All
the
right.
Micah
There you
one.
go. A dinosaur.
I knew it was right when the game suggested scalers.
Oh, yeah. Context clues.
Mm-hmm.
And second to last, we have Zoba. What kind of animal is Zoba?
Okay, we had the pig. I'm going to go with the duck this time.
I'll go with the ostrich this time. Oh, it's a chicken.
A void chicken. What's a void chicken?
Yeah, Meg, what is a void chicken?
Well, if you find yourself in possession of a void egg and you put that void egg in your egg incubator, a void chicken is hatched.
Oh, okay.
And how do you get a void egg?
There's multiple ways. I think the most common one is in the middle of the night. Sometimes the witch will come and just drop it in your coop. And then the next morning you wake up and there's a void egg in your coop.
Witches,
Okay, you're the cursed
dinosaurs,
chicken.
void animals, whatever that means. That's crazy.
And a garbage monster that lives in the sewer that Meg wants to marry.
I don't want to marry him. I just
you
want
would.
to be his roommate.
Oh, right. Roommate, yes.
Oh, sure. Roommate.
Oh, okay,
That's
okay.
how it always begins.
And maybe
Last
take him to
round,
the movies a few times.
Last round, Proopers is legitimately a name that was recommended to the one of us.
It sounds like a dog's name.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go with that.
I'm going to go with the duck again because the duck is just so cute.
The duck is extremely cute.
It's the
Proopers
ostrich.
is our ostrich, and he's giving us a heart because that's the end of the game.
Wow.
The ducks are very cute, and if you have ponds on your farm, the ducks will sometimes splash around in the pond.
I'm going to have to give Stardew a chance, another chance.
This was basically an ad for soft ad for Stardew, but I named my duck Gatsby.
Oh, okay. I like that.
It's fun. But yeah, I mean, just the sheer level of silliness, I think, is something fun to engage with. And the creativity aspect of it all really makes me feel cozy thinking about the games that I've played. And each of these I would easily go back and play again.
Yeah, and I think something else about cozy video games is I tend to get addicted to them. So I'm always looking for a game to lose myself in for a few weeks or months. And if anybody ever has a suggestion, please do let us know. What cozy video games are we missing out on? And hopefully you get to relax with some cozy video games in the near future. Well, Meg, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me on to talk about games that I find cozy.
Yeah. Good luck with your next 670 hours of Stardew.
Thank you.
Up to year 28.
I'll be sure to,
She hasn't been able to play in like 2 weeks because I've been playing Breath of the Wild again.
Oh, no.
It's true. They've had the
We
Switch.
have to share a Switch.
Oh, well, a new one's coming this year. So buy a second one and don't sell the old one. And then you can both play
true.
at the same time. Listeners, don't forget to follow us in your favorite podcast and social media apps. Check us out on YouTube as well for full video episodes. And we'd appreciate a review and leaving comments and leaving feedback. We read all the feedback that is submitted and we really appreciate all of it. And that is the hype around cozy video games. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.